My name is Adin Boldur. I'm a full-time practicing physician, as well as a council member at the IAC Las Vegas. About 2 months ago, my fellow council members, Dr. Adelson, Dr. Pokroy, Dr. Shalev, and Dr. Sachs, as well as Noah, our regional director, and Shoham, and my wife, Dr. Boldur, has basically sat down around a kitchen table and talked how can we as a group of doctors, community professionals, can create a hub of influence of pro-Israel and who are interested basically in the world of medicine and health came together. That's how the IAC Med was born. We brainstormed many topics and frankly could fill a week worth of medical conference on Israeli American and Jewish American, but eventually decided to start with two insightful panels. The first one you'll hear today, this morning, the second later this afternoon. I would like to thank all of you for coming for the panel to meet our extraordinary panel to learn about different aspects, personal stories around making a difference in the medical world. I'm happy to introduce our moderator for the panel, who will soon introduce the panelists. Professor Avi Almozlino, Chief Neurology for Newton Wesley Hospital, Associate Clinical Professor at Tufts University Medical School, and an IAC Boston Board and National Board member. Dr. Almozlino, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning to all. Thank you for joining us. It's an honor and pleasure. There is no question that the impact of Israelis on the world of medicine has been grossly disproportional to our size of an 8 million people nation. Israelis are no doubtly on the forefront of medical innovations and new treatment paradigms and have been for decades. So the question is, what kind of drive this success? Is it the type of particular intelligence? Is it perseverance? Is it the cut to the chase mentality? Or maybe it's our famous chutzpah that gives us an edge. Can we use our unique attributes to reach even greater achievements and higher peaks going forward? And what's important to us at the IAC is, can we leverage this impressive presence and success in the world of medicine to enhance the image of Israel in the eyes of non-Israelis here in the US and all over the world? This would very nicely align with one of our 3 pillar missions of the IAC, which is to support the state of Israel and enhance the bond between the peoples of Israel and the United States. So, I'm really honored this morning to be joined by distinguished panelists who will tell us about their innovative work and will try answering some of these questions. First, to my right, Dr. Miriam Adelson. Dr. Adelson earned a bachelor's degree in microbiology and genetics from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem before attending my alma mater, the Sackler School of Medicine in Tel Aviv University.
And in between, I was in the army.
And in between was in the army. And where she graduated actually with an MD degree, magna cum laude. Dr. Adelson then specialized in internal and in emergency medicine and served as the chief of service in both areas in the Rokach, also known as the Hadassah Hospital, in the heart of Tel Aviv, very near Allenby Street, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Balfour, yeah.
Balfour, yes. Since 1986, Dr. Adelson has been devoting her professional time researching the biology of addiction and treatment drug abuse. She has established clinics for the treatment of drug abuse, both in Las Vegas and Tel Aviv. Needless to say, we are all familiar with the incredible philanthropic ethos of Dr. Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, which have been so vital for the tremendous impact and success of our IAC. But you probably would like to know that the Adelson also have been known for the funding of medical research in the fields of neurology, oncology, and immunology. And they do it through a very groundbreaking and innovative collaborative approach, which cannot elaborate on today. The Adelsons reside in Las Vegas, Nevada. To my left, Nachum, Homi, Shamir. Homi received his Bachelor of Science degree from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and Master of Public Health from Harvard University in my hometown of Boston. Homi has fulfilled the happy dream of any Israeli entrepreneur. He made the mega exit not only once, but twice. He first sold the innovating Citus digital printing, where he was the president of CEO, to Eastman Kodak. That was in 2004, according to what I read. Then in 2006, he established Given Imaging, a developer, manufacturer, and marketer of diagnostic products for detecting disorder of the gastrointestinal tract. And then came the second exit when he sold it to Covidian. Currently, Homi is the CEO and president of Luminex Corporation and Diagnostic Genomic Corporation. Homi resides in Austin, Texas. Second to my right is Dr. Ido Schoenberg. Ido is another graduate of the Sackler School of Medicine, Tel Aviv University. Something about the air in Tel Aviv, I guess. Ido has long track of successfully leading technology companies in healthcare, including IMD Soft, which he co-founded with his wife and our dear council member in Boston, IAC council member in Boston, Phyllis Gottlieb. IMD Soft is a provider of enterprise software that automates hospital critical care units. And under Ido and Phyllis, the company became the market leader with hospital clients in 4 continents. IMD Soft was successfully sold a few years ago. Currently, Ido is the chairperson and CEO of American Well Corporation, a leading and dominant force in the innovating and rapidly expanding, that's the future of medicine, folks, the innovating and rapidly expanding area of telehealth. Ido and Phyllis divide their time between Boston and Tel Aviv. Last but not least, to my far right is Dr. Ed Edward Des Greenberg. Dr. Greenberg received his undergraduate degree from Brown University in Rhode Island, magna cum laude, and received his MD degree from Cornell University, after which he specialized in diagnostic radiology and interventional neuroradiology at New York Presbyterian Hospital. Eddie is widely published, and his list of awards and honors is very long and impressive. He specialized in the most advanced and innovative, minimally invasive treatments for vascular disorder of the brain and the spinal cord. Eddie and his wife, Galia, resides in Bethesda, Maryland, not too far from here. So, first, maybe we can start with some personal insight, and perhaps each one of us can say a few words as to what led us to become a physician or a medical innovator, and how it relates to our Israeli connection. Dr. Adelson, if you want to start.
Okay, I grew up in Israel, was born in Israel. As a matter of fact, I was born in Palestine, so you can calculate how old I am at least. Studied in Haifa, grew up at Haifa, and graduated high school quite young, and I could go directly. I studied biology, genetic, and microbiology, and then I served in the army. In the army, I had great service, very much enjoyed science. I did biological research, and then I went to medical school. What made me study medicine all my life? I loved biology, I loved botany, I loved physics, I loved math. I'm on this direction. And somehow during high school I excel in physics, and the last moment I made mistake and registered to study physics and math in Jerusalem University. I was accepted there. And then 2 weeks before school starts, I called them, can I change it to biology? I was kind of, what would I do with physics? I don't want to be a teacher. And at that time, research in physics looked so far away from it. We didn't have laboratory in physics. We had laboratories in biology in the school, but not in physics. So last moment I decided it's not practical, though it's my passion. I love physics, but no. And I studied biology, thank God. And then I continued with medical school. So environment, my parents always encouraged me to study, to learn. Curiosity was always answered as much as they could. My father would come home from work and read books. So curiosity, probably my genetics that made me good in science. And you love what you are good in, and you are good in what you love. So it matched me. Then I had to pick what specialization to take, and in the beginning I wanted pediatric, to work with children. It was very short dream because the first boy that died from leukemia, I said I cannot deal with young child who is dying, and I would like, at least if I will do, it's the same, little different, but pediatric and internal medicine is pediatric is the internal medicine of the young ones, and then internal medicine of older. And at least when I'm treating older people, they had some life, and it's not so difficult to say goodbye. Then to 11 years old, it was my first patient who died from leukemia. And I was connected to him, I was attached to him, and it was so painful. I said, I cannot take this pain. And so I moved to internal medicine and emergency medicine, and all in Israel. And the fact that I came to the States, maybe this is, in Israel, we call it GIA, Givein in America. So everyone that is getting the tenureship, that's it. You need to go and do specialization in some small subjects, something new that you can bring your hospital. So one of my friends went to the Rockefeller University and specialized in lipid, Moshe, and came back to Israel and opened laboratory and research in lipids. Because we have people with diseases. I don't know if all of you are physicians, but we have people that we have diseases where they have too much lipids, certain lipids in the blood, on the blood vessels, etc. So you need treatment. When I was at the Rockefeller University, I thought it's a great place for me. You have to be Nobel Prize laureate to be the president, very academic. And here I am, given in America, found myself at the Rockefeller University. And what I found myself, what is my subject? My subject is something that I can bring to my hospital. At that time, addiction in Israel was low, and especially that was the period that the HIV started to grow among drug addicts. And the pool of HIV virus among drug addicts in Israel who were starting sharing needles was still low. And I said to myself, if I come back with this knowledge and knowing how to treat them, I will prevent them from sharing needles, from being in the street, and reduce the spread of HIV in Israel. And that was my purpose, And that's the way I came to addiction, and that's the Israeli connection, my genetic connection, my history connection. Thank you.
Homi, maybe a few words about your background.
Thanks. I'm not a physician. I was born in Israel, although my mother wanted me to be a physician as a good Jewish mother. But I went to the extreme. Actually, in the 70s, the high-tech in Israel was agriculture. So I went to the Hebrew University and studied agronomy. Early 1980s, I went and worked for, on those days, it was a very large Israeli corporation. It's basically not exists anymore, by the name Eisenberg, Shaul Eisenberg. Mm-hmm. And I started doing agricultural project to him for all over the Far East, mainly in the Philippines, but mostly all over. Spent a few years building really a mega project in those days. And then I realized that really I cannot be a rich guy if I will continue in agriculture. And actually I went to Harvard, met my wife, and then we thought to move back to Israel. And when basically we were moving to Israel, a startup in those days in basically transforming the digital world or the digital media, if you all recall, all the printing in those days used to be done manually. And then Cytex came as a company that started changing the whole industry, where you basically had a computer, and on the computer, it was a huge computer in those days, you start doing page layout and etc. What we today doing in our laptop or iPad, in those days required a $250,000 device to do it to newspaper or magazine. So because of my experience in the Far East, and because I knew how to behave there and how to work there, they sent me to Hong Kong to set up Cytex in the Far East. And then my son was born in Hong Kong. My daughter, later on, we moved to Singapore. My daughter was born there. And that's really became my knowledge in the basically imaging technology. Eventually, I became the CEO of Cytex, and I also started realizing that digital printing and the way we are going, it's going to be in the hands of small device on large consumer. And we sold the company to Kodak, and Kodak part of that and part of HP. I got, as I call, hostage as part of the deal. I needed to go and join Kodak. I was an executive in Kodak, but one of the things in Kodak I realized and that's correct today, they did not understand too much innovation. And they did not be too close to the market as we used to be in Cytex to understand really what the market needs and what the customer and the trend. After 2 years there, I been offered to run Given Imaging. Given Imaging used to be a small startup company. We invented the PillCam, which is a camera that takes picture of the digestive way. But Given needed to bring an executive who really can build it into a company. I came on board. I was shuttling between Atlanta to Israel for 8 years, till the point that, again, we realized that to the future of the company, and actually also to the better of the shareholder, because we were also a public company similar like Cytex, it was time to sell the company. We sold it to Covidian, who is now Medtronic, and I'm glad to say about that, that's still a very, very successful company. Not too many technology that you sell to other large corporations. You see that they continue to grow, continue to penetrate the market. I'm glad that most of my executive team and my employee remain the company. The business continue to grow. So that's really what satisfied you. After that, I've been offered to run another NASDAQ company, which is based in Austin, Texas, and it's called Luminex. We are actually in the diagnostic of a lot of diseases that needed DNA testing. It's really an exciting field, a field that whatever I learned 45 years ago, it's hard to imagine how this field changed. And it's really fun to grow this company and continue to learn. So thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Schoenberg.
Thank you, Avi. I wish I had thoughtful answers like my predecessors. My answers are much simpler. I went to med school because I had an amazingly beautiful biology teacher, and she recommended that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that she was right. In way of innovation, that's a little bit more complicated because it's very clear to anyone that healthcare is very broken, and anyone has million ideas on how to fix it. The challenge is how do you translate ideas into action, into a business model. And one, as a young person, needs a lot of help. So my wife and I's story is quite simple. Thank you very much. My parents and Miriam are the only people that remember that I used to be a doctor. Of course, Miriam is much younger. The story goes as follows. I mean, we had a small VC, and my wife, Phyllis, our council member, encouraged me to try to make a company out of an idea to automate ICUs. And it was very difficult to raise the funds and to find a business model. So someone who knew someone introduced us to a person that we never met called Sheldon Adelson. And he came in to the Sourasky Medical Center in Tel Aviv, looked at what we've built, and for those of you that know him, he doesn't have a very long attention span. It was do or die in 3 seconds. But he looked at what we have and he said, I like it very much. But in his very unique way, he was very open, very sincere, says, I know nothing about that, and I would need to bring experts to see how you're doing. I promise this is a good story, Sheldon. It ends well. But in any event, Sheldon and Miri flew in a team of people from outside to film what we've done. And we spent 5 days shooting a film about our company. And I think the cost of the film was higher than the entire money we wanted to raise. There were serious people there. And at the end, we had a meeting in the tallest building in Tel Aviv in the top floor. And there was a Betamax cassette. And Sheldon took the film, put it in the cassette. It was 10 minutes long. It took hours in our mind. No muscle moved in his face. He was very focused on the film. He turned around and said, this is terrible. Thank you for trying. We're not going to do business. Clearly, that was a serious disappointment. And we said, Mr. Adelson, what's wrong? And he said, well, it's a commercial film, and I want something more authentic. And therefore, it can't happen. And we said, if we had another film now, would you take it? And he says, well, that's ridiculous. You don't. But if you had one, of course, I may have considered it. And then we said, when are you leaving? He said, I'm leaving tonight. So Phyllis and I went down a very long elevator ride on Hanukkah. It was raining. We stood outside penniless in the rain. And Phyllis came up with the idea to call the bar mitzvah guy that did our son's bar mitzvah to take a film. Now, to be clear, we just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a film, and we have no budget, and a bar mitzvah guy that may or may not come. He said he would come, but he can only come without a light guy. The light guy is still angry, I guess. In essence...
Maybe somebody is leaning.
Yeah.
Everybody check where they are leaning.
It's a bed night story, so you can sleep and I'll tell you through it. But anyhow, we did the film. I was holding my own light. Phyllis was the director. Within a couple of hours, we made it. We moved it to the American standard. And at 11:30 at night, we knocked on the door of Miriam and Sheldon's home in Tel Aviv. Sheldon opened the door himself. Was very unsure who we are at this point. We said, we are the people from the morning. He took the cassette, put it in his own television, looked at it for another grueling 10 minutes, turned around and said, we're going to be partners. He became the chairman of IMD Soft and was an amazing guide for us for over 20 years. So in innovation, it's not always about the ideas, it's about the people that can help, the guidance that they can provide, and it's a lot about perseverance.
Dr. Greenberg.
So, well, I'm humbled by these stories. So my story about how I got interested in medicine and how it all connects to Israel sort of is also fairly simple. My interest in science, I was born interested in science. What can I say? I don't know why. That's just the lot that I got, and I was ever since I can remember. That's what I was interested in. But the story of the Israel connection. Yes. Oh, a little closer. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Is that better? Okay. So, the Israel connection to the piece of the puzzle here is really the story of my family. So, my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. My grandfather's family was completely wiped out. My grandmother's family, she had a few sisters that made it out, and they actually made it to Philadelphia in the United States. But my grandparents moved to Israel, and fought the War of Independence, fought in other wars, and that's where my father was born. So, ironically, they wound up leaving in the early '60s, left Israel because my Savta, my grandmother, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in Israel, and they didn't see much hope at that point for treatments. So they came to the United States and joined my Savta's sisters in Philadelphia when my dad was pretty young, and that's where I wound up being born, and the rest was described earlier in terms of my medical career. But definitely growing up with, my grandmother actually lived with us. My Savta lived with us, and growing up with her in the house. I don't know if anybody has seen patients with Parkinson's disease or lived with them. It's a very difficult situation to care for these people. And I remember it very vividly. We didn't have any help. My father, my mother, cared for my Savta growing up, and just seeing how precious life is, the lessons of the Holocaust, the miracle of Israel, and seeing this caregiving combined with my interest in science really made it clear that I wanted to spend my life combining those two interests, helping people. And that's sort of how it's all tied together. So.
Thank you. All medical innovations start with a person, so that was a delight to hear. Question, and you can take it first, Homi, and then we can go around the table. What do you think is unique about our Israeliness that propel us to this disproportional achievement in many areas actually, but in medicine and the medical technology in particular?
I think, somebody mentioned the word chutzpah, but chutzpah, it's part of the DNA in my body at least. But when you look at that and look what we have done in my team in our life, is basically no is not the right answer, okay? We're all the time trying to see how we can get there. And when you know what you need to do, and you see, especially when I look at, for example, given imaging, the unmet needs in this area. When you have a small bowel that is 22 feet long, and you know that no other technology can go in, and also the patient don't want to use this technology, you know that you have a market here. So getting a lot of no here is not acceptable. And that's where we build a company. We build a company that we try to develop through the years, what I call the 3P connection, which a lot of Israeli companies don't know how to do it. And I think that's being close to the market understanding. The 3P connection is actually knowing what the physician wants to do, except by the physician, what the patient would like to prefer, and the most important thing, make sure the payer are willing to pay, especially in the biggest market in the world, which is the USA. Without reimbursement, you cannot survive. So taking all this, and I remember a lot of meetings when, you know, I came to Given, we did not have basically reimbursement. We needed to spend a lot of time trying to convince payer the benefit of the technology, the same time running around the physician. And here I think we had a fairly large advantage is some of the physicians and majority of the early adopted were Jewish. They were benefiting with the Jewish relation here. So we managed to get what we call KOLs, key opinion leaders, who used to stand on the podium in those scientific and lecture about Given, why it's Given, and by the way, the whole market here, the colonoscopy market controlled by the Japanese company. All the imaging company, camera company are the player there. But standing and saying about the benefit, and then eventually going payer by payer, convince them for the benefit of this technology. Behind that, I think the other thing, going back to being Israeli, I'm not afraid to fail. I think failure is part of our being. As long as you don't make mistake. I mean, in a lot of society, and I remember my days in the Far East, I was sitting one day in a board meeting, and I've been young and saying there, I made a mistake. Everybody look at me like I suicidal myself, because they cannot admit of being. To me, making a mistake, liking to mistake, jumping to the water and continue to move, and that's part of being Israeli. That's what's been taught in the army. I was also an officer in the IDF. You learn how to, okay, let's regroup, let's see where we are going. And the same thing in the business life, in the medtech. That's what happened to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Adelson, what makes Israelis successful in medicine and medical innovation in particular?
Okay, as we discussed earlier, Israelis are Jews, right? We are Jewish first, in my opinion, and I'm Israeli, Jewish Israeli, and Jewish American. Jewish people for generations suffered all this anti-Semitism, persecution, and somehow I call them the survivors who survived, the smartest that could do all this calculation in math and were hired by the Gvir, by the big guy, and had 10 children, could put food on the table as compared to the not so smart guy who couldn't find a job with a Gentile as his accountant or whatever those days and couldn't fill this kind of natural selection of the people that could do it. So also at home, the education, books, reading, knowledge, all over, it's common to all the Jewish people. So the suffering and maybe some selection, selection because of the environment of the smart ones, and also the fact that your culture is different and ask you to ask questions. You don't need, as compared with another religion that we know, that you have just to listen what Allah told you. Here, we are challenging what God say. We are trained to ask questions. And so that's our background in general. Now we go to Israel, you have third dimension. Israelis are the real survivor. They're Jewish and they're Israeli. Jewish suffering from all the things, cholera that I told you, some of them are good, but in Israel we have more. We have all around us our neighbors that are trying every day to destroy us. So we have to come with solutions. Who thought about Kippat Barzel? Who thought about it? Who thought about the fact that we can solve the problem of the tunnels? We have solution. Nobody else in the world is solving the tunnel issue. We have solution. I don't know how, okay? But suddenly so the need come, and we are smart, and we can do it. We solve, and with this comes all these kids that are developing the new solutions, the new things like outside the box, we call it. Oh, somebody is waving his stuff. So all these things create different way of thinking, and these mainly young kids coming out of the army, where they had to do so different out-of-the-box solution, are coming out and can do it to other things, to diseases, to immunization, to security, to cyber. All these kids are coming with different way of thinking, mainly through the army, but many of them later on in life. So that's what we are. With all this combination of genetic environment, we are here now today, and we can think out of the box to solve problem. And that's the speciality of us. America don't have this threat every day. It would have soon, it's starting to come, but didn't have till now. And many, many other places, it's peaceful. So they don't have to think immediately, what can I do to survive? So this is a big factor, and I think this is the big player among the Jewish people, and especially the Israeli.
Ido, maybe you can tell us about your current venture, American Well, couple of words, and what's so innovative and what's Israeli about it?
Okay, I was getting ready to answer the previous question, but that's okay. We can do that at another time. The story of American Well is something I can speak about for 3 minutes up to 3 days. So hopefully I'll do something in the middle. I'll try to be brief. But in essence, healthcare is very broken. All of us are consumers of healthcare. We know it takes too long. It costs too much to see a doctor. And there are systemic reasons for that. Mainly, healthcare did not change in the last 2,000 years. We go to the cave, there is a line, we wait, we see the doctor. Healthcare in 2016 is still driven by location. And with technology and necessity, it shouldn't be that way at all. So what we said is that if you do a straight line from where we are to 2030, for example, we're going to go bust and nobody will get care. There is a growing gap between supply and demand. Something has got to give. And we took note of other industries, and what we said is that it's possible to move care online. And if you think about telemedicine, that was here for centuries. When people were Morse coding to people that build railroads, that was telemedicine. When a pediatrician is talking to a mother, that's telemedicine. So we took that model and we said, instead of connecting one person to another, we're going to connect two clouds, a cloud of patients and a cloud of doctors. We're going to learn as much as we can about them, and we're going to create a giant switchboard that is going to create the best match between supply and demand, making sure that my chances of seeing my own doctor that I trust are the higher. As a result, we can offer people much greater choice at much lower cost from the convenience of their home, and we can offer doctors an opportunity to serve their time when my child went to sleep and I want to spend 2 hours later, when I'm about to retire and I'm more comfortable providing services at home, so we can squeeze more services from the ever-shrinking supply chain. Now, while that may sound really simple, it took us 10 years and $250 million to build that. There are regulatory, financial, practical challenges in order to make that happen, but today we did. I would venture to say that the healthcare revolution is just beginning. In the next decade, it's going to dwarf any other change or revolution that we ever seen. It's going to be bigger than search, bigger than e-commerce. In essence, all of us are going to rethink everything we know about healthcare. The definition of the point of care, the definition of quality, the definition of what a medication is, personalized medicine, and so on and so forth. Of course, American Well is only a small fraction of this revolution. The world that we are going, all of us, to experience as we get older is going to be much, much better. The chronically ill patient is going to get most of her care at home, connected to wearable and non-wearable devices. instead of having a lab result once in 6 months, we're going to have millions of data points going into the cloud. And people like Apple and Google and Samsung and Philips are all focusing all their energy to make sure that a lot of our data goes into the cloud. And then people like Optum and IBM are going to take this data to try to understand what happened and decide what to do based on enormous amount of information. And then doctors that are going to be paid differently based on their ability to manage risk, not based on the number of interventions that they've done, are going to take this information and close the loop back to the patient and say, hey, grandma, you gained a pound a day in the last week. We don't think it's your diet, we think it's your heart. And I'm your doctor and I'm changing your medication. And someone is going to knock on her door 15 minutes later with a bag and a new medication made just for her that comes with support. So if she's not sure whether to take it with food or not, there'll be a great nurse or especially pharmacist that is going to be there to help her. I'm proud to say that Teva, our Israeli company, is very involved in really doing that last mile. Teva is very well known at treating 250 million people a day, the largest generic company in the world. Quarter of the pills in America are made by Teva, but most of the people in America think this is a company that makes sandals. So all that is going to really, really change and going to make care much more democratic, much more affordable to people.
Great. Thank you. Eddie, maybe in a few words, maybe as the outsider perspective, because you grew up and you had your medical education here in the U.S., any observation that you've made as to what make Israelis more successful in these particular areas?
Yeah, no, I think it's sometimes useful getting somewhat of an outside perspective, although, I do have the Israeli connection. My wife's from Israel, and we have, obviously, her family's there, and, spent a year at the Weizmann Institute and interacted with Israelis, my whole life. So, but I do think that, I thought about this question, and, I think that, when you look at Israel and what makes it innovative, you have a situation where you have a people, the Jewish people, that just are bent on surviving. There's a big survival drive in the Jewish people. We've obviously made it through a lot of different catastrophes throughout our history, and now you have the Jewish people returning to Israel, where I don't know if any of you realize this, but there's not that many natural resources in Israel. So you have the people resources and not as many natural resources. So there's really no choice. If Israel wants to survive, if the Jewish people want to survive, there's no other choice but to innovate and use the resources that the people have. And I think that Israeli innovation has been, as my opinion, has been pushed by really a no-choice situation. Look at the water situation. You have the British. I recently read that the British estimated in 1920 or 1930 that about 2 million people could live in the land of Israel at a maximum based on the water resources there. And it was actually a political thing because they wanted to limit Jewish immigration to Israel at that time. But I mean, Israeli innovation now has created a situation where there's more water than is needed in Israel. So look at what the innovation has done. You see that, and there's so many other examples, and we have 3 minutes, but just that's my perspective, is that the innovation comes as a no-choice option.
Great point. So now the question that really interests us is the IAC. We are here for a purpose, folks. We all came, 2,100 of us, here to Washington for a purpose. And the question is, how can we weave in the Israeli narrative in our story about Israeli innovation in a way that can enhance the positive image of Israel and its society? Again, as the IAC, it's of immense importance to us. Homi has to catch a flight, so he's probably going to leave in a few minutes. So we'll let him answer first.
Anything we do on a day-to-day, either you're a physician, innovator, or medical device, or medical diagnostic, is the end of the day is saving people's life, okay? And that's the mission we are. And I remember, in Given Again, going to Given Days, about 300,000 people are here using our capsules, about 2 million so far use the capsule. We really save people's life. When you start seeing people who are suffering from Crohn's disease or colitis, or some people who don't know why they have unknown bleeding in the body that eventually turn to tumor and they could not reach it, you give them a pill. And I must say, given, and I think it's part because it was very easy to show, it's the capsules, part because of maybe Shimon Peres or Netanyahu, who used to stand in AIPAC and show the innovation out of Israel. It's got the awareness, especially in the USA, but behind the USA, that Israeli technology is changing a part of life. But the same thing is happening across. I just wanted to mention one more thing, we see what Ido mentioned. The way we look at the world is going to change. The world in medical is going to change. The iPhone is changing everything. We're looking that more and more screening diagnostic will be part of life. If I'm not feeling well today and I think I have a cough, I will put a deposit, I take a sample, either saliva, blood, or stool, leave it in the office building, and 2 or 3 hours later I will have an answer. And if it's positive, I have Amazon deliver my antibiotic, and behind that, I will try to match my antibiotic to the disease or to my body, to my gene of the body, because everybody behaves different from the antibiotic. So that's where you want to make. So the world is going to change. Now, I'm also, being an Israeli, and I spend a lot of time back at home, I'm trying to find also some technology out of Israel that I can bring into the current organization that I have. But again, it's all become brand. As Ido mentioned again, Teva. How many people knows about Teva, or they know that, yes. But when they take the drug, they don't know exactly what it is. So trying to create some identification to the product is tough. But I think the awareness, and I must say that I have the pleasure or the privilege, I know most of the medical device CEO of large company in the USA and out, they all respect. They used to come to me to visit me in Israel. They used to see what we used to do. So there is a lot of respect, and that's the other part of, and I'm jumping one more subject here. Israeli companies are being acquired. Like Given, most of the medical technology are being acquired. We're building company, but eventually the large organization seeing the benefit of owning the technology and buying us. And that's fortunate and unfortunate. To me, it was fortunate, but it's unfortunate because behind Teva, we never built a large medical or another success story, because the bigger becoming bigger, and that's the name of the game here. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry. And I really apologize. I need to leave to catch a flight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Adelson, can we, and if we can, how, can we enhance the image of Israel through telling the story of medical innovation?
Okay, for my experience, as compared to Homi, which a major company could make impression, me, the story is more personal. Me as a physician, how could I make? I didn't come as a big company. So wherever my husband is doing business, I said I'm his tail, and I'm there, so what can I do? I go to the government there and I try to help them in the subject of addiction. So me, Israeli, are coming to the government and ask them, and that's my experience in China, Macau. I went there, they introduced me to the people who are specialists on addiction medicine, and I saw what they are doing. I learned that at that time they had a lot of HIV, drug abuse, hooker, there in Macau, and they were concerned about the spread of HIV. They wanted to treat. They didn't have the right treatment at all. I taught them, I gave them a lecture, how I am doing it in my clinic in Israel and my clinic in Las Vegas. They all the time knew I'm Israeli. And they learned, they accepted what I told them, and the next thing they had to prepare the medication. And in China it's more complicated, they needed to ask permission. And each time we were waiting for it, one time it got stuck in the custom in Hong Kong. Anyhow, it arrived, and I sent my staff from Israel or from the clinic in Las Vegas to help them start the program, to start the normal everyday clinic activity. So, and they listened and they learned, and they were not ashamed to learn policy of procedure of a doctor from Israel and America. They all the time knew I'm Israeli. They knew that I'm there to try to help them. I gave them all my intellectual knowledge, which worth money-wise a lot. I gave them experience from the early 1964. Whatever was studied since then, till we started this procedure around 8 years ago, and opened the first clinic and second clinic. Now they're on the way to open the third clinic. And guess what? The AIDS epidemic stopped there, reduced. So I'm not a big company. Name Israel is not written on the medication or on the little camera. But sometimes I think that one person can make also a little change, so they know they're in Macau, that I'm helping them, that this Israeli girl is helping them solve the problem of addiction. And they say that I help. So that's my self-fulfilling, and everyone should do whatever he can. Okay, I don't have a big pharmaceutical company, so I do my share, and I'm happy about it. Thank you.
You certainly lead by personal example. We know it, many of us serve in the IDF, and we learn that in the IDF, some of us as physicians are medical educators, and we teach medical student and physician in training, and the best training is a personal example. And I think that people that you treat know where you come from and know who you are. Especially nowadays, everybody Googles your name, and it's within 30 seconds, all your history is up there. So I think that's the association.
Not the drug addicts. Not the drug addicts. They don't have computer. They sold it to buy drugs.
Thank you. Ido, is there something to be told about innovative companies in the medical field which are developed and marketed by Israelis that can help the image of Israel?
So I would divide this into two issues. One, how can we communicate what we do already in a better way, which is an okay question. And the much more interesting question, in my opinion, is how can we do more to really become a center of innovation for healthcare in a time where this is going to be the most important area. Just to give you an idea of how dramatic this is, many of you know Philips, right? We buy their TVs, we see their lamps, and so on. Philips sold all that. There's no lamps, there are no TVs. Philips now decided only to do healthcare. You all know Samsung, lots of telephones, TVs, and so on and so forth. Samsung CEO said that their number one focus area is healthcare, and they want to treat 1 billion people by 2020. So this is huge. And we often say, Mitzion tetzeh Torah. Torah is not information. Torah is values. If we can find a way which is directly related to a DNA to focus on healthcare, that's a wonderful thing. It will not only bring money to Israel, it will also position Israel, and rightfully so, as an entity of cure, an entity of help. So today we live in a tough global competition world. If we can find a way to connect the Israeli here, the Jewish community, and the many innovators in Israel, potentially we could come together to create an array of solutions that will be much stronger together. Part of the challenges of Israeli companies is that they're underfunded and they only serve a very narrow niche. Therefore, they usually get acquired really early, and most of the value does not maintained in Israel. This is a national security issue. Our level of education is going down. We'll not be able to competitive. Today, the quality of our high tech is driven by education that was provided 20 or 30 years ago. What we don't know is how the future is going to look like. So there is a real good reason to try to find an active way, in my opinion, to take all those companies, bring them together, create solutions that are bigger than individual solution of each company, and then use our relationship, our infrastructure, anything that we can do in order to create real pipe to make those companies scalable. So to give an idea or an example, there is a person called Moshe Yanai. He was one of the founders of EMC, a very proud Israeli. He's based now in Israel. And after EMC, he created a company called XIV. And XIV was a company that did what EMC did in storage, but just better. And he came to American Well and said, I'd like to sell you my storage. And I said, Moshe, we're good friends. I'm not going to make this decision. My team will decide. And they turned him down. And they turned him down because he didn't have enough proof to show that his new products are really scalable and reliable. And what he did was he took Israel as a sandbox. He gave away his product to the government and to the very big companies that were brave enough in order to endorse them. And following that, he created a very meaningful company and sold it for about $500 million to IBM later. The selling part is, of course, suboptimal, but the story is that there are a lot of very good components in Israel that could potentially allow us not only to share the wonderful things that we're doing, but to really become a global leader in healthcare within this historical time of opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to have time for a question. Just we give Eddie the opportunity to share his perspective as to can we enhance the image of Israel through telling the story of Israeli treatment paradigm and medical innovations.
Yeah, no, I think we must share the story, and yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think we need to share that story because I don't know of any pill or medical device that only works on a certain segment of the population. Every medical invention, every device, every drug works on everyone. Medicine is a universal field, and we need to emphasize that. Israel does so much, and I think we can all be very proud of how Israel treats all patients equally. I had the experience of visiting in Israel the Ziv Medical Center, where they treat Syrian refugees in a very innovative way in Field Hospital. I actually did a talk on neuroscience and stroke there at the hospital, and I think it's remarkable, and I think nobody knows it. So except now we all know it, but we need to get that word out there, and that is how we can portray Israel in a very positive light using the innovations that are there.
Thank you. We're going to have a Q&A. Before that, maybe just a 1-minute word by Noah about our new kind of a group here, the IAC Med.
So as Dr. Boldur said, it was just an idea around the kitchen table. Having 5 doctors at the IAC Council, we figured we got to do something. There must be other health professionals that would like to connect, that care about Israel, care about the Jewish American identity, and let's just try something out. We were overwhelmed with the responses. We've had people from all over the world wanted to come and talk in this panel. We could have filled a week worth of medical conference. So all I want to throw out here is, what do you think about it? Don't answer yet. I just want to say, we can take it to the next level if there's interest. Having groups of you meeting in your regions, developing ideas, taking all this information here out into the community. Keep it up. There's a great potential. Perhaps next year we could have many more sessions. But I also want to say a big thanks to the IAC, the council in Las Vegas, who came up with this idea, Dr. Shalev, Dr. Boldur, Dr. Kermit Boldur as well, Dr. Neely, and Dr. Pokroy, and Dr. Adelson, of course, and our partners, Science Abroad, and I'm sorry, this is such a long name, the American Healthcare Professionals and Friends for Medicine in Israel from Boston that helped us spread the word out, bring all of you here, as well as Ilana Moyal from the embassy here in Washington, helping us get the word out. And thank you, of course, to Avi for paneling, Dr. Almozlino for doing, and Nama from Boston as well. Thank you.
Okay, bring it in, please. We'll go one and one, please. You can grab you can stand up and just speak. I think they're going to hear you.
So thank you so much for sharing your candid sentiment. A way of building Israel's image and enhancing the way it is within the medical field is not only through technology. Obviously, that's one important factor, but like as you all know, humanitarian aid is a very significant part of building Israel's image abroad. Okay, especially with the current situation in Syria, and I'm so happy that's something that you had brought up, because there are organizations right now on the ground who are actually working with Syrians and bringing medical aid. They're taking busloads of people from the Syrian-Israeli border, and they're bringing them to Israel, and they're bringing them into Zev Medical Hospital. Why is it that, my question to you is this, why wasn't there a representative here on this panel who could represent what humanitarian aid means for Israel and the security of Israel?
Great point. We have actually a whole special session on that, which is actually when? This afternoon? Yes, there is a special session. If you look at the planner, you see a special session headed by top people who are actually very involved in this aid, but that's an excellent point. Thank you. That's a great point.
And the organization is Amalia. You should all look into it.
Please.
I am from the Save a Child's Heart organization, which operated over 4,200 children with heart diseases from 54 partner nations. These children are ambassadors of peace, what I call actually medicine as a currency for peace. When we started our missions in Ethiopia, and we went to China 12 times as a mission, and you know the mortality rate in the Hebei region, it's a small region of 50 million people, with 5,000 every year born congenital heart diseases, and the mortality rate was something like 75%. So I stopped operations over there. I took the whole team, and we lectured them, and we are granted the Medal of Humanity from the President of China, a Medal of Volunteering from Shimon Peres, and we are growing. We are starting to build the International Children's Hospital. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Please, go ahead. Can you stand up and speak up, please?
Unfortunately, as we know, many of the rare diseases occur in
That's a great point. I think that the question is why Israel is not represented in an international forum on rare disease, if I understood correctly. And that's a very pertinent question. I think that something that we may be meeting with some official from the Israeli Ministry of Health, something to be asked. Thank you. Ido wanted to say something for, I think, the 30-second story that he wanted to tell us.
Can you repeat your name, please?
Josephine.
Josephine. So Josephine raised a super important question. I mean, we are not an island, and there is enormous suffering going around us. So I want to share with you a very personal story. Right now, as we sit here, our 9th president is struggling for his life. And there's no discussion that he is one of the greatest men in our history. So 2 years ago, we sat in his son's home overlooking the Sea of Galilee and the Golan Mountain. And this man that is focused on everybody but himself said, you know, I wonder if there is anything we can do to help these people. And he came up with an idea that we started to implement but didn't have a chance to continue right now. Hopefully he's going to quickly recover and we're going to continue. But he came up, as you may know, my company is called American Well, and he said, I want to create Middle East Well. And I want you to give me everything you have for free, but that's a side point. And with that, what I'd like to do is to have doctors from Israel, from Europe, from America, use your technology so you can broadcast care to those refugees camps. And I felt that it's such an amazing idea, if you think about it, for a number of reasons, most importantly about the character or person that he is, thinking about the people in need, and I can tell you that we and many others are committed to continue this legacy with him, hopefully, but even if, God forbid, many years from now he will not be with us, to continue actually do that.
Thank you. If you can kind of try to be as succinct as you can, please stand up and ask the question.
Every day in the United States, 22 American veterans commit suicide. I brought over 100 veterans to Israel. Their response is, why don't we have these medical possibilities in the United States? Is there anyone in the field in the United States, neurology, therapy, talking with people in the United States, in Israel, talking with people in the United States to help bring some of the innovations for PTSD, brain injury, neural injury, to help our veterans soldiers here in the United States?
That's actually, I think that's a very interesting idea. Traditionally, the migration has been reversed. I mean, people, physicians from the U.S. would come to, from Israel would come to the U.S. for training. And there is actually a lot that maybe U.S. medicine, especially in the area that you mentioned, can learn from the Israeli experience. So it's something we should think about and maybe promote. Thank you.
Yes, Israel has a lot of experience, post-traumatic mainly. From the beginning, we have wars, and we identified it special disease. We know we have the clinical sign, the treatment, what is working, what is not. And of course the Israelis can share with American. I'm sure they're sharing with them, but it is something that we'll check and think about it.
This side now. Th- Thank you.
Next Molly, yeah.
Please.
Miriam mentioned that Israel has these challenges in survival that might explain what motivates and drives its medical innovation. But I wanted to ask the panelists also, simple Jewish values, the highest values of a Chavim B'Chaim that we must choose life. Israel is in a region surrounded by a cult of death. Whether it's the ancient pyramids that glorify death, whether it's modern Hamas that teaches youth that they will find their greatest glory in death specifically. And Israel is this countercultural force that speaks about life. Our most famous rabbi of all in all Jewish history is arguably more famous to the world as a doctor than he was as a theologian or as a rabbi. What role does simple Jewish values that can be translated as a light unto the nations, Israel influencing its region? Because so much death has come from the Middle East. What role does Jewish values play in Israeli medical innovation?
That's a great point. I think that Dr. Adelson actually alluded it previously when we talked about what makes us such an innovator, and that our Jewish ethos, our Jewish values, and if you want to add a word.
Yeah, the fact that we are Jewish and how we are trained and how we learn how to ask questions, not as the other religion, when you have to totally obey what is written in their Torah. You cannot ask questions in the other religion. In Torah, you are encouraged to ask, even to challenge God. Okay? So here we are growing in this culture of questioning. Besides, I don't know if you have been from the beginning, but I don't want to repeat my answer. Beside our background as Jews with all the history. So I think, yes, it is one of the components that is creating what we are creating here in Israel and in the world.
We're actually out of time, but we'll take one more question.